What's up guys, Uncasual Gamer here, and today I'm going to be looking through my Nintendo DS collection. So the Nintendo DS came out in 2005 here in the UK, alongside the same time as the PSP, and I grew up with kind of both consoles. I had both handhelds while growing up. Now when I look back on the two consoles, I often have more nostalgia for the PSP. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's because it was like a little bit ahead of its time. It was more of probably more of a grown-up console in some respects. But that doesn't mean I didn't love the DS. And when I actually look back at the selection of games I've got on the DS compared to what's on the PSP, I actually realise I played the Nintendo DS a lot more on the PSP, and I actually have a lot more love for this console than the PSP. Now, as you'll see, I've only got a fairly small Nintendo DS collection. There's about 60, 65 games, I believe, or between 50 and 60 games. And as you'll see, as we go through this video, and this was at a time when Nintendo were really, they'd had the GameCube, PlayStation, Xbox had now come into the video game landscape. It wasn't going to be plain sailing for Nintendo anymore. They realised that they had these two big competitors who were, I guess, stealing their market, and PlayStation, after the PS2 especially, had the biggest market share of video games. And Nintendo really, with the Wii and with the DS, they wanted to appeal to maybe a younger audience and also a more family audience as well. So not as much as your hardcore gamers, which is where Xbox and PlayStation were kind of aiming at, kind of branching out much wider. And I remember growing up, both my sisters even had a Nintendo DS console, and you know, they didn't own any other consoles, they just had a Nintendo DS, and that was because of games like Nintendogs, etc. And it was, I think it's the best-selling handheld of all time. And again, that just goes to show how Nintendo appealing to a wider audience worked. However, what that does mean is that this selection of games is basically one way or the other. It's either amazing top-tier video games that hold value today, or it's pretty much just filler titles and shovelware. Titles that are worth like pennies, that I've got no interest in playing, that most people won't ever have any interest in playing. Anyway, let's get straight into it. So as you'll see, I've got a number of DS consoles up here and some down here, and we'll get into them at the end of the video. First, we're just going to run through the games in my collection. As I did with my Xbox 360 collection video, I won't talk about every game, and especially all the shovelware on here, I won't be talking through that. What I'll do is I'll mention the title, and then on the better games, the more valuable games, the games that I grew up playing, I will talk a little bit more about. So kicking it off, we have got, so these are in alphabetical order, I will say, except for the first one and the last kind of 10 or so, which include duplicates, etc. So the first game we've got is just a multi-game. So this is, I think they're called the R4 cartridges, and I don't know, it's like from China or something, and it's got like, it says 208 games or 128 games, I'm not sure which is correct. All in one card, it's kind of got a little memory card in the cart. Obviously, this is not Nintendo authorized. This is from online. You can get these on like eBay and stuff. And to be honest, I don't really use this because I've been a game collector and the video, like a more traditional video gamer, I prefer putting the original cart in and playing that. I got this bought for a present a few years back. So into the actual games now. And first up, I'll do the first two, which are both kind of filler titles. These are Beat the Intro, where you just guess the intro song. Got this at a car boot sale for like 50p. I don't think it's even worth 50p now. And Art Academy, which is, I guess, as it says on the tin, it's just a art game. Never played it. I think growing up, this actually, I kind of saw this about, and I think one of my sisters might have got it. It was into art. So I don't know if it's actually any good. But I remember this being more of an actual title. And this, I've never heard of it apart from seeing it at a car boot. Next up, we have got, I'll do these two games together. Now, these are actually, look, everyone's got these in the collection, even if you're not a game collector, you've probably got this game sat in a loft somewhere, and that is Dr. Kawashima's Brain Training. So yeah, this game, you know, everyone in the world had this game. I think it was actually bundled with a lot of Nintendo DS's, and at the time, it was actually pretty fun. My parents used to play on this. I'd never go on it. It obviously was meant to be like educational, and I think the reason it did so well, and it was bundled with the DS, is that it showed off the DS features really well as like a cheap game. So the touchscreen, the microphone, the dual screens, I think you used to hold it sideways. imagine it's as good, although I might be wrong. If you played this one, let me know in the comments below. But then got two games that I don't need to talk about at all, and that is Girls Life and I Did It Mum. Again, these both came in bundles when I bought a DS, and they've just been thrown in there. Never put either of them even in the DS, so don't have any intention of putting them in the DS. And again, this is just going back to that, how Nintendo were really marketing this console towards the younger audience and towards a more family audience. And these kind of games probably did all right because people probably got them for Christmas for daughters, granddaughters, sisters, and they probably sold better than expected. But I mean, today, no one in the world, I don't think, is picking up these games and playing them. We then got a couple of Lego games, and I love the Lego games, absolutely love them, especially on my Xbox 360, Xbox One, Xbox Series X, and on obviously equivalent PlayStations. I've never thought that they've held up particularly well on handheld consoles. I mean, the nature of them, you're quite a small little character in there, and I think that's hard enough to see on, even when you go back to like the PS2 era and the original Xbox era. So playing it on a DS, I'm not the biggest fan of, but probably the two best ones you could think of. This is Star Wars, the original trilogy, Lego Star Wars 2, the original trilogy, and Lego Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings is my favourite film of all time, and I absolutely love the games too. So it probably is one that I need to give some attention to. I did play this when it came out as a kid. I don't know if I ever completed it or not. I was pretty young at the time. These are just, games that I think they're like £5-6 each in CEX. So the games that obviously people, they're not throwaway titles, and Lego titles are rarely ever worth anything, but they're also rarely ever worth nothing. They kind of always fluctuate about £5-10 mark. So yeah, good games to have in the collection. Maybe something I should jump into and give a try at some point. We've then got another shovelware title, and that is My Word Coach, which I'm guessing teaches you how to spell. Won't talk about that. And now we actually get into some good games. This is what you've been waiting for now, okay? So the next, I'm just looking on here, and the next maybe, or most of the next 10 to 15 games are exceptional games, some very big hitters. So first up, I've got 2 copies of Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games. If you know, my guilty pleasure is sports games. I don't mind a bit of FIFA and Olympic Games and Mario and Sonic. I remember playing this on the DS and on the Wii when this was out. Used to love it on the Wii. My cousins would come round and we'd doing the 100-meter sprints, etc. You'd have like Sonic, Mario, Shadow, Tails, whatever. We'd all be battling it out. And I actually used to enjoy this on the DS as well. It's just packed basically like 20-odd mini sports games or sport mini games. And yeah, I find these kind of games lots of fun. Not worth a lot of money, and also the Mario and Sonic games, particularly the Wii version, you kind of see, if you live in England, every single charity shop. They're probably like the most common find in charity shops over here. And then one of my top 10 games of all time, my favourite DS game of all time, by a country mile, I would say, and that is Mario Kart DS. I've got 2 versions here. I've got a sealed version, which, as you can see, has still got the Nintendo wrapping around it, and we've just got the normal version. The same version, obviously, but open, which is the one that I would usually play. I mean, there's not much I can say about this game, except that, there's not much I can say about this game that's not already been said. I absolutely love this game. Me and my friends, even up to when we were in sixth form, so like 16, 17 years old, we would still get 8 of us. Obviously, you only need 1 cartridge. We'd hook all the DSs up on a download player and just play hours and hours of just racing on this. For me, it's the best the best Mario Kart that there's ever been. I think obviously the latest one on the Switch, I think it's Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, is brilliant and obviously better graphically. It has more karts and more tracks and more playable characters. But for me, for the nostalgia, the portability, how everyone seemed to have this game at the time, so no matter who you were with, whether it was with family or whether I was with friends, I was on holiday, in the car, going somewhere, at school, this was the game that we would play. It was so accessible. And yeah, for me, top 10 games of all time, and that's across all consoles, and this is the best DS game ever made, in my opinion. Next up, we have got My Sims, a game that I never really played. I think this was like on the Wii as well. And I guess a little bit like what we said before, how it appeals to a wider audience. It was kind of like, I imagine it was kind of like the Sims, the actual Sims game on PC. But as you can see, a bit more kind of cartoony-fied and such. So I never really spent much time on this. Again, I think my sisters played it. And then moving on, we have got, I'll talk through these two together. So New Super Mario Bros. This, again, one of my favourite games on the DS, and I spent a lot of time on this. I've played through this like 2 or 3 times. It's just an absolutely brilliant Mario game that you can play, or that you could play on the move, on the go. And yeah, for me, one of the better games. I think this is about £20. It's CEX, so it's held its value well, and that just goes to show. I mean, obviously it's got the Mario title, but it's a great game, and that goes to show why it's held its value. And then Mario vs. Donkey Kong Mini Land Mayhem. Didn't play this one as much, and this I think is a bit cheaper. I think this is about £10 on CEX. But you know, these kind of games, I felt like, obviously I'm not old enough really to remember too much about the NES, the SNES. I didn't grow up with them consoles. So the first time I played these, you know, I had the Game Boy Advance, I had the Game Boy Color, I had the Game Boy Black and White. But really the Mario I remember, this is kind of Mario era for me, these two, Mario Kart, etc. This is the era, early noughties, when I remember Mario. So these kind of games have a lot of nostalgia for me, and I just think they're brilliant, yeah, and they hold up really well today. We then got Mystery Case Files Millionaire. I think this is just a copy of, I don't think I've actually got in the collection, but there was the Professor Layton, I think it was, and he had like, there was like some Professor Layton Curious Files kind of games where you were kind of like, he was like a professor and you had to like solve the case. And I don't think I've actually got them in the collection. I thought I did have them, but it looks like I don't. I think this is just basically kind of like a rip-off of one of them. I know that them two did really well, the Professor Layton games. I haven't really heard of this one. I think I got this at the car boot sale as well for like 20p or something. And then we move into two games which I think made the DS so popular. Like we mentioned, it's the best-selling handheld console of all time, and I think that these games are one of the reasons why. So these are obviously the Nintendo games. I have got the Dalmatian one and the Labrador and Friends one. I know that there are like 4 of these. I think there's also a Chihuahua one and a Dachshund one. Yeah, my sister's literally got a DS just to play these with their friends, and they'd sit on this for hours, like walking the dog, doing the assault courses, feeding the dog. You could have up to like 8 dogs on them. They'd be shouting down the microphone. And these really were like a game changer. I know we said the PSP was ahead of its time, but when you actually go back and look at these, they were pretty impressive. You know, they made really good use of, again, all those features like Brain Training did. The touchscreen, the microphone, the stylus, all the stuff that the Nintendo DS had. And it maybe looks gimmicky now to look back on, because we're so used to touchscreens and all that. But I think, yeah, these games are one of the reasons why the Nintendo DS, some of the games that definitely played an integral part of why the Nintendo DS did so well, and branching out just from that core game audience. And then we get into some of the heavier hitters, and as you can see, we're going through the alphabet. We've done M, we've done N, so naturally we're now going to P, and I'm sure you can guess, if you've not already, that we are now talking about one of the biggest brands in video games. And I've got, I think, 7 games in the collection, so we'll start with the first one, and this is Pokemon White 2. This is I think it's a £98 game in CEX. I'm not going to talk for every Pokemon game. My favourite Pokemon game, especially in this era, and probably ever actually, is Pokemon Diamond, and I've got that, so we'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, I mean, Black and White 2 were absolutely exceptional games. They were really, really good, and I think they've spiked in value more because they didn't sell as well as Black and White 1. Probably just because they were numbered as 2 and people weren't that bothered about picking them up. But yeah, Pokemon White 2 is the first one. I've then got Pokemon Black version, which is probably my second favourite Pokemon game of all time. Again, absolutely excellent game. I can't say too much about Pokemon that's not already been said, because everyone, if you're watching a video game video like this on YouTube, then you know about Pokemon and you know about these games, right? We then got Pokemon Diamond version, which, as I said, is my favourite Pokemon game ever, and my favourite, probably the second favourite DS game. They're going after Mario Kart. And then in terms of spin-offs, we have got Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Blue Rescue Team. We have got Pokemon Ranger Shadows of Almar. And I didn't play these spin-off games as much. I'm more of a kind of the main line Pokemon titles. But some of these games I did play growing up, and they are pretty fun. They're obviously not the same as your Blacks, your Whites, your Diamonds and Pearls, but they are so much good fun. And these all tend to sell for around £20 to £50 mark. So they're still valuable games. I think Black is £55, £60, which we've just shown you, and I think Diamond's about the £40 mark. So they're all, you know, the cheapest Pokemon game out of these 7 is like, I think like £20, £25. So they're valuable games. So just in these 7 games, we've probably got like £300 for value. And I am hoping to get the full DS collection. I think there's 18 games on the DS, Pokemon games. I am hoping at some point to get them all. Obviously, it's a lot of money. They're expensive games. I do think they'll only ever go up. I don't think they'll drop in value, these games. Next up, we've got Pokemon Ranger Guardian Signs, another Pokemon Ranger game. And then we've got the last one is Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Time. So 2 Pokemon Mystery Dungeon games, 2 Pokemon Ranger games, and 3 mainline Pokemon games, Black, Pearl, and White 2. Moving on, the last few games in the collection, we've got Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End. I used to love this game on the 360. When it came out, I absolutely loved this game. Obviously, the films are brilliant, and it was an era where these films, along with like Lord of the Rings and things, were kind of, the big fantasy worlds were really big at that point. And I remember the game, usually movie time games are really bad, but I really liked this game on the 360. Not actually played it on the DS. The photos on the back look pretty horrific, just because of the graphics, mainly, I think. Next up, 2 games that I really enjoy, and again, sometimes play with my fiance, and they are Scribblenauts and Super Scribblenauts. And again, these are games that I think were ahead of the time. Essentially, you have like little mini missions you've got to do, and you can type in pretty much anything. I say anything, probably not anything, but you can type in like I think it's showing on the back here. So say you've got to, example, get across a bit of water, you can type in bridge and a bridge appears. So you've got to get up a wall, you can type in ladder, ladder appears. And they're really fun games to play. They're kind of like puzzle games, but yeah, I would recommend these. And I think they hold up well today, and they're still fun to jump into. And then the final 3 we're going to talk about are games that I've not played. I wouldn't really class them as shovelware too much, because they're kind of like branded games. They're not just like I Did It Mum and Girl's Wife. They're actually branded games, but the games aren't really worth anything, and I don't think they're that worth playing. First up, Star Wars The Clone Wars. Then we've got Nickelodeon The Penguins in Madagascar. It actually looks pretty fun on the back and might be good if you're younger. And we've got Tom and Jerry Tales, and similarly, looks, I guess, fairly fun on the back. What you'll see with the DS is that almost all these games, like these kind of games, are just basically mini-game compilations. They just have like 20, 30 mini-games in them. And that works well for a console that relies on things like touchscreen at the era it was out, and the target audience they were going for. So yeah, although the better games by far are your Pokemons and your Marios and your Sonics, which have actually not got any Sonics on here, I think that, the DS really sold itself on like these mini-game kind of games and appealed to younger audiences, family audiences, etc. So yeah, that's the main kind of like 50-ish games. There are some duplicates down here and some more filler titles, some more shovelware, which I'm not going to talk about too much because they are just pointless. What I'll do quickly now is I will go through the DS consoles. I've got, kicking off with the original fat Nintendo DS. This is a blue variant, and I love these ones because obviously you can put the Game Boy Advance carts in the back of them. Normal DS cart at the top. And yeah, this is just, when you think back to playing the DS, this is what people kind of think of, I think, isn't it? Like, how cool is that, man? I remember playing this, and yeah, the screens aren't as bright as some of the following models, etc., but this is what you think of this and the silver version of growing up. I mean, actually, I think it looks pretty neat still, even to this day as well. I don't think it looks that ugly. After that, they launched the Nintendo DS Lite, which was a smaller variant. Still had the Game Boy Advance slot in the back, and this is the reason why this is probably today for collectors and people who want to jump back into the DS, the model to go for. It's quite a bit smaller and neater than the original version. The screen's a bit brighter, it's more compact, and it still has a Game Boy Advance slot in the back. So yeah, if you're picking one up, you wanted to pick one up or you wanted to jump back into the DS, this is definitely the model I would go for. Doesn't think it's got any power, this one. It does have some power, but it's got, actually, I think the screen went broke on this one, which is not ideal. Then we got the DSi. This is my original one, which I grew up with playing. This is what I play when I mentioned playing Mario Kart in sixth form in school. This is the one I played it on. And it's in a matte black here. Basically, the DS Lite, very, very similar size to the DS Lite. However, this one added 2 cameras, and it also, I think it added like Wi-Fi functionality, where I don't think the Lite had Wi-Fi. Might be wrong on that one. But as you can see, they're almost identical in size. The DSi is a tiny little bit bigger. So there's not much difference between them. The DSi has 2 cameras, which, let's be honest, you're never going to need or never going to use. But it doesn't have the Game Boy Advance slot in the bottom like the DS Lite did. And that's why, again, just reiterating that the DS Lite is the way to go, not the DSi. And then moving on again to the last variant, we have got the DSi XL. which is basically just a giant version of the DSi. So I've got 2 of these in my collection, and as you'll see, if I open up the DSi alongside it and get the power on, yeah, it's basically just, it's the same console as the DSi, it's just a lot bigger. Obviously, if you're not carrying around with you, this is the way to go, because this is it's a better screen. The screen's pretty wobbly on this one, actually, I would say. Obviously, if you're not carrying around with you, this is the way to go, because it's bigger and easier to play and easier to see. But it is very big. This wouldn't really fit in your pocket, I don't think, whereas the DS Lite and the DSi, I think they would both fit in your pocket. They're basically just a smartphone size, like you can see here. I can hold it in one hand quite comfortably. The XL, or the DSi XL, you can't do. So yeah, there we have it. That is my Nintendo DS collection. I'm probably going to do some more of these videos, so let me know what collection you want to see next. I've already done the Xbox 360, although we are continuing to expand on that collection, and that's the collection I'm still focused on the most. But let me know, we can do original Xbox, Xbox One, PSP, PS2, PS3, PS4. Which collection do you want to see me go through next? And I really appreciate it if you could drop me a like on this video just down below. Leave a comment too, even if it's just to say you've watched the video. That means a lot to me, because that'll help the video get more views. And if you do enjoy the content and you want to see more content, please do subscribe to the channel. As always, thanks for watching and keep gaming.